So good morning, everyone. My name is Beverly O'Neill. I'm coming to you today from the unceded lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people in downtown Vancouver. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining the National Indigenous Agriculture and Food Sharing Circles, which is a part of the Canadian Agricultural Human Resources Council. Today's session we are on will be youth in agriculture. Our guest speakers today are Dale Worme. He's with the Federated Sovereign Indigenous Nations, the Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math program that includes agriculture. He's in Saskatoon. He'll be online in a second here. We've got Terry Baird. Give everybody a wave, Terry. He's with the Tsawwassen First Nation here in the Lower Mainland in Vancouver, and they have a farm school. So he's going to talk about the farm school partnerships there, as well as how they get youth involved there. And I'm hoping nothing's happened with our fella from our international speaker. His name is Calvin Salemo. He's a farmer and a Vanuatu young entrepreneur council leader, which if you don't know where Vanuatu is, that is about 400 kilometers east of Australia in the Polynesian islands. So they're doing quite a bit of things. In the 80s, their country, the First Nations whose lands this country is, they restored their role in government in that country. So looking forward to Calvin joining us here. By the way, it's 4 o'clock in the morning in Vanuatu, so hopefully his alarm worked. And the crow got crowing at 4 a.m. So thank you guys. To get started here on this, remind everybody, please let us know who you are. Put your name and where you're from, your location in the chat. If you'd like to do a land acknowledgement, we welcome those as well. So feel free to add that into the chat. Reminder, these are webinar sessions. So if you're wondering who else is online, on webinar sessions, they only show the speakers and the panelists as well. If you have any questions or comments you'd like to make along the way, feel free to add them into the chat. Or you can also, when you've got a question, put it in the Q&A feature. Those Q&As, that's part of your menu bar that starts with the mute button all the ways over to the end. So the Q&A button is sort of in the middle. And the other thing that you can do in this chat session is we've also added in the feature closed captioning so anyone who wants to turn off your mute, turn off the sound on your system, or even add in or want to make sure you're hearing everything that people have to say, just hit the closed captioning button and it'll show closed captioning on your screen of each of the speakers' comments as they're talking as well. So this is a panel discussions presentation itself. So we'll have each of our speakers introduce themselves, talk a little bit about their program, and then I have a series of questions and we'll open up for dialogue. I'll monitor the questions along the way. At the end of the session, so we are committed to being finished at the top of this hour itself. At the end of the session, we will be doing a draw for the Indigenous participants itself, a prize draw of $100. You must be in attendance to win. So Aaron, I'll have introduce himself in a moment here. He's our tech person. He will bring up on screen an image for the draw. Press a button, and if your name comes up, shoot us a chat that you're there. And if we don't get it sort of right away, then we'll do another name for the draw. So we're committed to closing at top of the hour, 1 o'clock Ottawa time, Eastern time. And following this session, you will also receive an email with a question on the session itself. So our sessions are recorded so that people who were unable to make it, or those who did and they want to sort of recall what was said during the session, they're recorded and shared through the CAHRC website and the YouTube channel itself. At the end of the session, we'll also talk a little bit about some of the resources in our upcoming initiatives and additional sharing circles itself. So I'm going to ask Aaron, if you can do a quick introduction of yourself, and then Rebecca Baldson from Canadian Agriculture Human Resources Council will introduce herself.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Aaron Briso. I'm from the Canadian Agricultural Human Resource Council. And over the last 3 years, I've been able to work on these sessions with Beverly and very, very happy that we've been able to continue them. And we hope that we can keep building off of our previous sessions and have as many people join to learn from wonderful Indigenous people across the country and internationally as well, so that we can learn what they're up to and how they're revitalizing some traditional practices. Now, I will say I'm actually in Regina right now, so in Treaty 4 territory. Usually I am in Ottawa, but we'll keep it short for me because I'm currently in a convention center, so trying not to be too loud with background noise, but I will be here in the background if you folks need anything from a technical perspective. And of course, we'll let Rebecca here introduce herself now too. Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. So just kind of echo what Aaron was saying. Just wanted to welcome everyone on behalf of the Indigenous Advisory Committee at the Canadian Agriculture Human Resource Council. We're welcoming you to the first of 8 webinar series called Sharing Circles, as you know. My name is Rebecca Volston, and I'm the Stakeholder Engagement Specialist here at CAHRC. So I'm in charge of all of our partnership programs, and I love reaching out to all different community members. I'm also a dairy farmer in Western Quebec. I dairy farm with my husband and my 3 little children. And the agriculture industry is just very near and dear to my heart. So I will definitely give the mic back to Beverly and let her start the session. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Rebecca, for welcoming us and giving us a little bit of a headline on what's going on with CAHRC itself. One of our speakers is having a little bit of challenge joining us, so why don't we start with Terry Baird introducing himself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Terry. I'm from the Tsawwassen First Nation. We are a treaty First Nation. In the treaty, we got some agricultural land, and over a period of 6 years, we're able to work with a partnership with Kwantlen Polytechnical University, a local university here, to apply their farm school and their knowledge on our lands, and we're able to get some Tsawwassen First Nation members involved in the farm school and earn their food sustainability certificate. And it was about an 8-month program out on the farm, and that's developed into a very well producing farm, as well as we've copied that, and now we're working on our own farm, as well as Kwantlen still out there. But we have 2 farms, and then we also work on our community garden as well. Yeah. I don't know if I missed anything out, but I'm a Tsawwassen member as well.
Great, thanks, Terry. I'm going to just ask questions while Dale is coming online here. He's just on the wrong link. So, Terry, the Tsawwassen Farm School itself, when did it start, and who was involved in creating that partnership? What drove it?
It was a partnership between Kwantlen Polytechnical. They reached out to us, and they already had an existing farm school in Richmond, BC, that was very successful, and they wanted to reach out to a First Nation and do another farm school, and we had a great location, and the timing was perfect. So about 6 years ago.
So it was driven. So Kwantlen was the one that approached you. So what were the reasons that Tsawwassen decided that this was something that they wanted to do?
Well, traditionally we used to be farmers a long time ago, and I think Tsawwassen as a whole have already decided in our annual general meetings that it would be great to start farming again. And this was a perfect opportunity. We had the knowledge and the equipment and the program from KPU that we could just start on our lands, and it just really worked well.
So, Tsawwassen First Nation is the First Nation in British Columbia to have signed a treaty. I recall that prior to your treaty agreement, the community, the band, had very little land. Did you have land that was already locked up in agriculture or locked, and how were you able to expand your land?
Well, the way our First Nation worked, they're called certificate of possession holders. We had 3 families that owned all the land basically around Tsawwassen First Nation, and they had basically just leased it out for quite a small amount to local farmers. So it was the local farmers that were actually farming it. But once we got the treaty, then our footprint became much bigger, and some of that footprint was already on the agricultural land that was frozen. That couldn't you couldn't develop it. It had to be used for agriculture, which is fine. And it left us that kind of opportunity with leasing a little bit of our land, but also working our land ourselves as well.
What are you growing on your lands?
Tomatoes and cucumbers, all kinds of vegetables, peppers, lots of green vegetables. It's
Is the community using that produce, or do you sell it on a market?
a little bit of everything, but yeah, our community is getting it. It's fantastic. The elders first are getting their fresh vegetables, and they're used at our community events, and it's getting to the point now when you start being successful growers, you've got a lot of work to do on your hands, because all of a sudden your fields are producing and you need to move that product. So other techniques have been able to save the vegetables as well, maybe canning and training our people to do other things with the vegetables and fruits.
Okay. So back to your partnership with Kwantlen. So Kwantlen approached the community, approached the Tsawwassen First Nation government itself about 6 years ago, you said. So tell us what were essential elements to that partnership? Did you have an advisory committee? Did you need skills upgrading, training?
Yeah, well, that's what they provided. They've already had a curriculum created out in Richmond, and so what we're able to provide is a footprint of land for them to start working on the farm and start planting and all that. And then in their curriculum, part of the partnership is they're allowing us tuition, so many members to get free tuition into this farm school. And so they're actually they're doing a little bit of livestock as well in the 8 months. So it was quite a rounded amount of farming from start to finish. Gave them a lot of knowledge.
Terry, what's the age range of your participants?
Well, now it's anywhere from they start off from grade 8 to post-secondary age and after grade 12, basically. So
And
we
is
are
that in the
involving
summer
our
program or year
yeah,
round?
we're involving our youth now in our summer program, which gave us 4 spots out the farm to hire 4 of our kids to go work out there for the summer. And now that's getting even more popular. Now there's 8 spots going to be there for next summer, so it's pretty exciting. We have a agricultural committee with youth on that as well, and it's just starting to resonate with the community and the kids.
You've got youth you said on your agriculture advisory committee. Does Tsawwassen have a youth council as well, youth involved in government?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
So something we're working on for sure, as well as the evolution of the youth into our farming as well, right?
Now, with your youth summer program in this agricultural farm, what are some of the key messages that you're using to attract them?
Well, we like to think we have a lot of different positions here at TFN in our administration and our operations. And so we're trying to, part of this, the main thing about this program, student program, is getting kids out into these areas to see if they kind of like that field of work or not. And we have everything from engineers to lawyers to planners to, people working on the farm, professional farm people. We have public works people and water and sewer people. So all those jobs, we're trying to promote the jobs and the people to, experience that and see if that's an area that they might want to work in eventually. And now the farm school, luckily enough, we were able to hire 3 full-time members that are working the farm school, and it's just starting to, get better and busier as we're producing more.
That's great. Now, what are the things that you're finding that the youth are interested in your farm?
Well, it's a very fascinating field of many different things that you're going to learn, from needing bees to and learning how to handle bees to even working with livestock, the things you didn't know about livestock, and things about growing. And there are a lot of I've got to admit myself, I was quite fascinated with quite a few of the topics that they're learning at the KPU school, just because I didn't know that was that's what they needed to do to grow things. So there's a lot of really, really cool things that they're learning.
Now, are there any age restrictions in terms of any of the elements that are included in the farm? Because in British Columbia, there are age restrictions on what type of employment youth can get.
Yeah, well, I think it follow, whatever labor laws are there right now. So, yeah, it's just, I think standard labor laws for anybody to be out there.
So, Terry, your role at Tsawwassen First Nation is in employment and training.
Yes.
So, is that a critical element or key element to keeping this program going?
Well, I've always promoted this just because I thought it was a very good cause, but I have Service Canada. I'm called an ISET, and so I deal with a budget from Service Canada and providing employment and training for people. And the KPU school and TFN, a lot of these jobs fell under that category, and I was able to use the funds to keep it moving that way and hire people out to do the farm work.
Is there can you maybe tell us, I know with the ISETs you'd mentioned you have funding. Is there a key area of program funding there that you use for the youth training or the summer program?
Yes. It's I do that. We do that every year. We have a youth center, and we have all our youth that come there almost every day. And we once we promote the job situation, we see how many people are interested in taking it, and it's actually almost out of control. It's so popular now. So, and it's to do with, well, you're off for the summer, why not make some money and learn something? And it's very, very popular. And now it's getting even more popular at the farm as well, which is really nice. So hopefully this year we'll have 8 farm students out there this summer learning about agriculture.
So you mentioned 8 specifically. Yeah, does your youth program start with any orientation? I know some of the communities do orientation as part of their summer program. And if so, what type of training do you do in that orientation?
Can you just hold on 1/2 a second, please?
Great.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry about that. Sorry, Beverly, can you ask me that question again?
Yeah, you've got people visiting, and I've got unscheduled fire alarm testing going in the background that we were not notified of. So apologies to everyone on that. I was just asking, do you do an orientation program for your summer students? And if so, what's the type of components in that orientation?
Well, we bring them all in, the ones that are interested, and that's pretty much all of them now. and even more, some people that are off reserve, and give them an opportunity to pick out what kind of what they like to do for the summer and what kind of field. It could be in law, or it can be in lands, or it can be out at the farm. And they have to go through an interview, and on the interview process, they've got three choices of which jobs they can pick. And one might be farming, the next one might be public works, the next one might be, in admin or whatever. And depending on, who's qualified the most for what, will decide who goes where.
What other training, you said they have 3 areas that they choose from. What are the other 2?
Well, it could be, wanting an office job, working, in our office, working in admin positions, working alongside our legal team, working alongside our engineers and building. We're pretty active out here right now, as you probably know, Beverly. It's really been kind of a roam overnight, and so we're very busy, and we've got all kinds of different types of professions that are
Yes.
in-house right now. And it'd be
Terry,
great. Mhm.
yeah, in Indigenous agriculture, we recognize that with First Nations, land includes water and air. So do you do anything in the aqua foods as well with your summer students?
Not yet, not yet, but it's definitely, we've talked about that.
So, looking at, KPU advanced, introduced themselves to Tsawwassen, said, hey, we've got this farming initiative we'd like to bring to your community. What are some of the key elements you feel were critical to getting this going? So KPU approached you. I mean, the ISET being in the community was pretty key. You've been with the ISET. I mean, I've known you for almost 30 years, I'm guessing on that. The ISET program, you've been involved in that, plus you're previous to that, economic development, a lot of training initiatives. What were the key elements of you when you look back on this? Because you mentioned you've got your gardens, you've got a few things going. What were the key elements to
The key elements
getting this
were,
going?
from the KPU side, was expertise, and from our side was land and money. To be frank, we had tuition dollars as well to help this thing along, and KPU would have their students coming from not just TFN, from all over the Lower Mainland to join the farm school. And so that's kind of, the tuition is what drove the whole thing financially to get it moving. And then part of the graduation process for TFN, if you're successful in getting your sustainable food certificate, you then be allowed to work a pod out on the farm and have your own little pod to work on for the next year. So it's really interesting way to, keep that person's going in the agricultural, industry.
Yeah, you mentioned a pod. Please add more.
Well, that's
Describe.
like, I think it was about a half an acre of land they get to work. And the part of that too is they'd be able to use the Quantland equipment that they've been trained on, their tractor and other equipment that's in the neighborhood. So they could fully go and work their own property, their own land.
Excellent itself. Hey, Dale's just coming on. He's had some technical difficulty. He's just going to be able to join us from phone. So we might not be able to see him as a speaker, but Terry, tell us about 1 or 2 success stories, like someone who maybe started at the beginning and what are they doing now?
Yeah, well, the major success story I can think of is a student that started. There's 2 students that started with the KPU Sustainable Foods Program, the farm school, and they successfully completed their course, and then they went and successfully started working their own property, or their own pods, and have been doing that ever since. And now they've been hired by TFN full time to run our own school, our farm. So yeah, if they've come full circle and now are running our farm school and are paid full time to do it by Tsawwassen First Nation.
Okay, excellent. Great. Thanks, Terry. We're going to talk more about the success stories in a couple minutes here. I'd like to thank Dale for joining us. And I'm sorry to say we don't have our contact Calvin Salamo from Vanuatu joining us. So we're going to make sure we get him involved in a future Zoom session. So Dale, thank you for joining us. I know you're in Saskatchewan right now. Tell us about the STEM program that you're involved in with the Federated Sovereign First Nations, FSIN, and how is the agriculture part of it?
Hey, good morning. Good morning, Beverly, and good morning to all the other participants. Sorry for being late. Anyways, the program is geared towards actually kids that are about age 13 to 20, 25. But I go to the schools and on reserve, and I end up talking to K to 12. So they want me to talk to everyone. And I think it's going quite well because agriculture is a science, and people look at it as not so much agriculture in producing grains and oilseeds or livestock. That's a bit much for them. But a lot of the communities are looking at greenhousing and similar activities. And the kids are really interested in it. We partnered with some other groups in Saskatchewan, like Agriculture in the Classroom. And they go out to the schools and they talk about agriculture to them. And so we partner with them, and it works quite well.
So Dale, prior to this initiative with FSIN, you are a retired person from Agriculture Agri-Foods Canada, is where we first met in the 90s. So tell us a little bit about your background in agriculture.
Okay, my agricultural background is I've worked with Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada for almost 25 years. I took early retirement, and I started doing groundwater studies, which is very important for this area of Canada, like the Palliser Triangle, where it gets arid. What was happening is people were chopping down every tree they could, and we were turning into a big dust bowl. So in the 90s, late 80s, 90s, there was a big push to get farmers to change their farming practices, and it really did work because there's, in the prairies anyways, there isn't so summer fallow was one big one thing that everyone did, just automatically. But there's not so many nice black fields anymore because most people are direct seeding into stubble, and that cuts down on fuel costs, machinery use, as well as it keeps the organic material in the soil and keeps it from blowing away, turning to dust. And so that's what I did for a good 15 years, I think. And then, about 15 years. And then
so Dale, let's get back to the youth program here. So you go to the schools. Is this throughout Saskatchewan? And how does this how, if so, how are you, how is the FSIN funded for the STEM program?
FSIN gets its funding from ISC, Indigenous Services Canada, for this. And unfortunately, funding from ISC is sporadic and it's proposal driven. So you have to write a proposal every year. So it doesn't make it that easy for planning. We go to all the 74 First Nations in Saskatchewan, and there's about, I think, a little over 80 schools.
Ah, oh, that's 80s. 80s a lot. So, what is the age of or the grades of the schools that you're in?
Some of them are K to grade 8. Others are K to 6, and then others are K to 12.
So tell us, with you've got a wide range of ages there, from young kids to kids figuring out what's going on with themselves. So tell us, what are the key elements in each of those age groups? Like, how does it differ from from a child who's maybe 7 years old, and how do you work with a child who's 12 years old?
You really have to break it down and use very simple language and try to ask them questions, be very interactive with them and see what they find interesting. You can, bring up all these different examples that you take with us and see how interested they are in that. And then if we find that they are interested in something, then we go into a little more detail on it. Then ask them, would you like to do this? Or how do you think this would benefit you and your family in the future?
So, what are the key messages? Because Dale, you're the one going around to the 80 different schools and First Nations throughout Saskatchewan. What are the key messages that you're using? What benefits might you say agriculture offers?
Food security is one, and surprisingly, people around here used to have huge gardens, and adults, like that are in the adult range, do remember when they were kids. Their parents had big gardens, and they always worked in gardens, and so we look at stuff like that. So food security is another thing. We could also, there's a few places that have market gardens, and there's other places that had, and why I say had is because I haven't kept up, that had a kitchen where they process all their foods, like from moose or elk, deer, and then their vegetables.
So, Dale, you're in a STEM program that includes agriculture as part of it, and it goes province wide. And Terry, you're in a First Nation driven farm school itself. So, can each of you give us an idea of roughly what is the cost each year to operate? Because Dale, you said you have to apply every year. So, and the funding, it's sporadic, so you're not guaranteed that you're going to be doing it next year. But any rough idea in terms of what resources, the level of resources that are needed?
At a minimum, I would need about 200,000.
And that's to get go all over Saskatchewan?
Yeah, that's the travel.
Mm-hmm.
And if I take a consultant with me, we have to pay for our food, we have to pay for our accommodations, the usual stuff. Yeah.
So overall, you're probably talking about $500,000 to $1 million to operate the provincial program?
500,000, yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Terry, any idea that rough range in terms of what it might cost to set up a farm school or a similar operation in another community?
I'd probably say, to start off with, you need the land, whatever the least cost of that land's going to be, maybe 20,000, 50,000 for the lease, and then you need to hire somebody that's knowledgeable in that, a professional farm person. I believe that person, when we first started our school, he was, all in about 100,000 for the year. And then he needs some help. So he needs, some people to help him get things planted and stuff. So, probably another 100,000 up top of that just to start off with. And that's not including any buildings you might need, some small greenhouses to, germinate and grow smaller stuff before you transplant it into the fields. Yeah, so unfortunately there is a cost to it, but you can do it in baby steps too, where it doesn't cost you too much at once, depending on how you want to start. You can start really small and build from that as well. So we didn't, we built, started big and built big, and now we're growing big. So yeah, it's the investment has worked out. And once again, we're sending fresh vegetables to our membership, and we sell a percentage of the vegetables to the local market. It's thriving. It's really good.
Yeah, the key thing you said earlier was food security. And in some ways it's also food sovereignty when you're controlling your source, your food supply.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, very, very much. Dale, back to you with STEM itself. So you'd mentioned the Egg in the Schools program itself. Tell us a bit more about that. We have in the past had people from the Egg in Schools as part of our listening audience. I think we've had them involved in some of the discussions we've had on other topics as well. But tell us about Egg in Schools.
Let's see. They are, well, they're cross Canada, something like 4-H, if people know what 4-H are.
Mhm.
Somewhat like that, but not quite, because they just go to the schools and just talk to the kids and give them little, say, like seeds in a cup and some soil, and watch them grow, stuff like that.
Now, what typically are the age groups that you work with? You mentioned the different schools, but are there specific age groups, like, with the reading program that exists in First Nations, it's set up for different age groups. In agriculture with Eggs in Schools, are there different age groups it targets?
Yeah, it's good to target different age groups, because then it's easier to keep them on one topic without having to switch from, say, kindergarten kids to kids that are in grade 12, to try to keep their attention. So you just
what are
focus
some
on
of the activities that you do with them?
in the summertime, from fall to summer, we take them out, with the permission of school, and we join in with their land-based learning, and most of the schools have land-based learning, and we talk about, in addition to this other stuff in land-based learning, there's also this agricultural stuff that people should be aware of, and that and for food security, purposes, you'll be able to feed your whole family.
Nice, Dale. I'm going to open this up now to our audience here. I can continue to ask questions. By the way, we've got some people from actually all across North America. We've got Aaron from the USDA National Institute of Food and Agriculture out of Albuquerque, New Mexico itself. Ken from Kempton, Ontario. We've got Cheryl from Opakasat Cree Nation in Manitoba. Claire Cullen from UBC Farm on the Musqueam territory. Derek Hastings from Trondeck. He's in Dawson City. We've had him as a speaker in the past with the farm and the greenhouse that they do there. Leslie from 4-H. Nadine from Northern Association of Community Councils in Winnipeg. We've got Arlene from Edmonton with the Next Generation Programming. So please, if you have any questions, you get them into the Q&A feature, put them in the chat, and we'll bring them forward. Back to the programming here with Terry and Dale itself. Dale, tell us about what do you see are key components or messages to, let's say, getting a kid who is maybe 8 years old interested in agriculture? What do they seem to like about it? How do you know you've got a kid that's really interested?
Well, you have to do a lot of interaction and engagement with the kid to see where they're at, what they know about agriculture, what do they think agriculture is, and then once you find out, then you kind of expand a bit on their knowledge and tell them, do you find that interesting, or what do you think of that, and then get them to continue on, and then work with the teachers in their classrooms to ask them if they can continue on, and if information could be sent to those kids, or if the school would like to start up a little project for the
So
kids.
getting school permission.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dale, there's a question for you. It says, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, another thing is we also have these family, we call them family science literacy nights. So we work with the schools, and the whole community is brought in or invited. And those that do show up, I've got different consultants that come along with me. They talk about their different areas of expertise. And it's very important to get the families involved and get them thinking and talking. And you have to have activities for adults as well as the children then.
Nice. So
That's it.
yeah, Dale, the question for you is what type of ADST activities do you do with classes in relation to agriculture?
What's ADFT?
Yeah, or STEM. What STEM activities do you do with classes in each class?
So we talk about number one is we try to what we think of as demystifying science, and saying and telling them how the everyday activities that we carried out are all science-based. Because if you think about it, our ancestors lived in this environment, without all this modern stuff, and they had to deal with everything like finding food, making clothes, getting shelter, and so they built up some knowledge on how to do that, right? So they used technology. So some people used nets. They made nets. Other people would use spears, right, to say spear fish. Snares, right, to get rabbits or ducks or something. Blinds, that part is the technology part, right? That helps us. And so we talk about stuff like that. And then there's the science part. Is then we start to ask them questions. What do you think of this, or what do you think of that?
Yeah. So that's cool, Dale. When you're speaking with youth in the class, you're bringing in and connecting it with ancestors and culture. Terry, what are you doing? How does Tsawwassen First Nation share cultural knowledge?
Well, I think it's we don't really engage the young people like maybe Dale is doing yet. But it's relatively new, the growing things, and I think just like how we fish, we'd bring our kids onto our boats and they learn how we'd harvest our salmon and how important it is to us. I think this is sort of the parents are coming out to our community garden meetings and to our community farm school and learning about our farms and teaching their children as well. Now we're starting to see the vegetables coming to the homes and how important and successful it is to be able to grow your own vegetables. But as far as the program's concerned with engaging the young people, we don't do that yet, but we are working on that.
So Terry, at the beginning of the summer, with the summer students, what are some of the skills that you're teaching right at the beginning of the summer?
Well, they're right out working the fields. They're right out there planting and harvesting with with our growers. So they're
And-
getting their hands dirty and liking it.
Fertilizing and pulling weeds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that too.
Yeah. Yeah. Learning about that itself. Do we have any other questions from the audience itself? Okay. Terry, you're aware of the summer student farm worker bursary from the there's a message to anonymous attendee here. So there's a little message here to Terry. So it looks like there's additional funding here. So I'll just read it out to the rest of you guys. It will be of benefit to everybody else as well. So there's the Investment Agriculture Foundation, the Summer Student Farm Worker Bursary Program. I don't know if your youth will qualify, but maybe if they do, it might be a great opportunity. And it says that the Summer Student Farm Worker Bursary Program is open to secondary and post-secondary students working in BC agriculture for the 2024 summer seasons, and students can qualify for bursary of up to $3,000 itself. So for the bursary, you must be 16 years or older, returning to full-time studies in the fall, and work for a BC-based employer for a minimum number of hours in the summer. And this includes BC-based business working in primary agriculture, food, beverage, or seafood processing, fishing, and agriculture. So the applications, they start accepting applications in January for the 2024 season. So I'm going to copy this and drop it into the chat message here. So thank you to whoever shared that. Oops. And I will put it in. There we go. So thanks, everybody. I'm going to ask both Terry and Dale, any advice to you from you in terms of what is the key messaging? How do we get more young people involved in agriculture the way First Nations we define what agriculture is?
Is Dale going first?
Why don't you go, Terry, and then Dale, and then we've got one last question here from the audience.
Okay, well, sorry, maybe can you just repeat that question again, please?
Recommendations. How do we get more youth involved, or key messages in the way we define agriculture as First Nations?
Yeah, well, I think the way we're doing it is just first of all, you got to start off, you got to have a farm, you got to get going on your farming initiative, you got to have something there to look at, and that really is, it sounds simple, but until you actually have something tangible, and then once that's created, then you get the interest, and for us, of course, we've got our summer program, and now we're engaging students, and that's getting to be even more popular. So, and that's getting bigger and bigger. Like next year, we'll double our amount of people interested in working on the farm now.
So show and have people do. So you said your program's about 6 years old?
Yes.
Yeah. So it takes a little bit of time. So it might start off slow, patience, make sure you have continuous investments into that. Again, a reminder, Terry, what foods are you growing again? That was the question. And are there any revenues from your farm production?
Yes, the revenues are quite minimal, and they'll just keep getting better as we produce. But there's one thing we never thought about is competition. We live in a farming community, so those nice farmers that were nice to us helping us start up, well, we had talk about selling your vegetables, well, now we're competing with them and stuff like that. So you got to find your niche market, just like anything else. And of course, we're probably right now our biggest consumer, and we're a fairly small nation. We're about 500 people, but we get our fresh produce. We're growing potatoes, tomatoes, broccoli, anything green you can think of, and hot peppers, basically anything you'd see in the farm market that's not from another country. Yeah, we've broadened our different vegetables. It's been fantastic.
Excellent. Roughly how much land do you have in production?
I think our footprint for the TFN Farm School is 15 acres, but we're not using the whole 15 acres yet. We do have some fruit trees as well that we've started an orchard. I don't think we've really that's hasn't produced much yet, but it's in the works.
Excellent. Takes a little bit of time for trees to grow.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Excellent. Great. Thanks, Terry. Dale, recommendations from you, and any types of, if you can also identify, are there specific foods that you guys grow in your STEM program itself in the schools? And is there any sort of a type of land that you might use in your school program?
Let's see. It's up to the schools, I think, to identify where they want to plant a garden or what they want to use for horticulture, right? And because they're the ones that are going to be there every day with the students. They're the ones that would take care of them. However, in the summertime, yeah.
Dale, there's a in British Columbia, there's First Nations teachers assistants in the school. Are there similar types of roles in the schools you're working with? And if so, do you have a relationship with that, with your program with people that are First Nations teachers assistants?
We if the schools have them, we talk with their science and math catalysts. And they're the ones that are supposed to get things going with the students in sciences and math.
Yeah.
And we're there to support them. And then, you know, and if we work together, then we can support each other on something. And then it's not only agriculture, but I mean horticulture, right? Because where I live in the prairies, you've got, you know, across Canada, agriculture is different. You know, from BC to the prairies, like some of the First Nations here are huge. They've got a lot of land, but it's all leased out. And so there has to be sort of on one side or one scale, there has to be some kind of a policy put in place where the parents may take up farming in addition to working with kids, so they become interested in farming. One of the things that ISK does is they pay for any amount of land that's leased out. They'll give. Last time I was there, I think they were paying. This is maybe about 10 years ago. They were paying $7 an acre for lands leased out, and I thought, well, that's kind of counterproductive to the First Nation wanting to get their people to take up farming, because if their people take up farming, then they may not get the guaranteed income that they get from leasing out land. So they get the lease from the farmer that leases the land from the leasee, and then they get the money from ISK for leasing out that land.
Okay, so in your program funding, that's a component where there's funding available for land lease in the communities itself. Last question for you. Yeah, great. Last question for you. Yeah. Do you find that teachers have the capacity to continue with your agriculture teachings after you leave the school? And if so, how is that supported, or how do you support the schools and the teachers?
If teachers are there long enough, then they can continue year after year. Yeah. But we have to get the community involved.
The ingredient, getting the community involved, so there's local support.
Yeah.
Excellent. Great. Thanks, guys. Well, we're almost top of the hour here, and as promised, we do like to keep the sessions starting and finishing at the time we've asked you to stay. So thank you very much, Terry and Dale. Especially for Terry, we've got a question wondering if Tsawwassen would be interested in doing an exchange with other farms or gardens or greenhouses in other parts, and this is an example out of Yukon, Dawson City.
That is a fantastic idea. I haven't really thought about that, but yes.
Yeah.
I guess the next step is who contacts who, Beverly?
I will send a connection to both of you guys. So that's great. So what a great suggestion. Thanks, Derek, about doing farm exchanges, finding out what's going on. Last year we had, in previous sessions, we've had Stephanie Cook from Opakasat First Nation with their vertical greenhouse. They're talking. So tons of really amazing things going on across the country itself. So we are getting ready for our draw here. So let's see, so Aaron is going to come on screen. So a reminder as he's coming on screen that we do have other sessions coming up. I'm just going to share a little slide with you for a moment here. And we have, as I mentioned, we've got the draw coming up here in about 1 minute. We've got a post-session survey, which following the close of this, you will receive a link asking you to just provide some additional comments. Let us know what your thoughts are for future speakers and topics as well. Again, you must be present to win here in a moment. What's other thing we're doing this year is we're doing sharing guides. And these are guides, some startups on how to start a greenhouse. Last year we had a speaker on greenhouses itself, so you can listen to that topic. We also had someone talking about apiary. So we're going to do sharing guides, materials on how to get going in greenhousing, regenerative farming, planting for climate change itself, how to do a community garden, what are the essential ingredients to keeping it going, composting, and soil. So ties in with our theme of climate change. Apiary, how do you start a beekeeping? We had a great speaker last year on that, so we're converting that into a sharing guide. And we're going to have some information sheets for those who want to continue to take what you grow and expand it into the food production side. So we'll be doing information sheets for you on food labeling, as well as on small scale animal farming itself. So these might be chickens and goats that you could farm on small tracts of land. So those are some information sharings. We've got our future sessions coming up. Our next one will be December 6th. This is going to be a partnership conversation, a success story, the Indigenous and the non-Indigenous partner, what brought them together, what were key ingredients on it. So you'll hear from both sides. December 20th, we're going to talk about storing fish and canning of other foods itself. Many communities are doing things like that. Regenerative farming, planting for climate change in January, community gardens, connecting and supporting Indigenous farming, the role of support. So that'll be Egg Canada will have an Aboriginal Capital Corporation speaking, as well as another Farm Credit Canada is on the table to speak for that one as well. So we've also got Indigenous practices in harvesting and foraging. After these wildfires that we've had, we'll see many of our people going up into the woods to harvest mushrooms. So we're going to talk about what are traditional practices in harvesting, as well as principles of sustainability, and also talking about safety. It's also about berries as well. And then last session before the end of the fiscal is women in agriculture. So lots of really cool things going on there. How do we get women involved? What are they doing? Some pretty cool things there. Okay, so also reminder, all sessions are free. They're always bi-weekly. There will be bi-weekly after the Christmas break. And please share with others, to invite them and share with others about these sessions. And please visit the CAHRC website, because when you do, you will get to link into seeing the sessions from previous years itself. And thank you all for joining us on this session. Please join us again in a couple of weeks on national partnerships with Indigenous and a partnership example.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks.